So the rumours linking Wout Weghorst to Manchester United have pretty much come out of nowhere. United just a few days ago were being heavily linked with Vincent Aboubakar, who was playing for the Saudi Arabian club that Ronaldo's just signed for, Al Nassr, but due to them having too many foreign players, he's had his contract terminated, so is now a free agent from what I understand. Now at the moment I am still in the dark as to whether United were actually interested in Aboubakar, or whether it was just a convenient transfer link, but it does appear that the Weghorst deal is a lot closer, and if it is true that United were interested in both of these strikers, it does kind of seem like United are just targeting strikers who did well at the World Cup, and are also going to be available in January for a low cost. But how good is Weghorst actually? I know a lot of people would have predominantly seen him play for Burnley, and obviously at the World Cup for the Netherlands, but I do think there's a lot more to his game than what English football fans have seen over the past year or so. But before I go any further, let me tell you why you should consider downloading the OneFootball app, because it's become my all-in-one place for keeping up to date with the latest football news, whilst also being able to follow Manchester United specifically, giving me access to all the latest news, videos and articles. It's also the best place to keep up to date with any live football, as during the World Cup they had a live ticker for any updates on the match, confirmation for the lineups as well as a rating for each player, and also all the team stats you need as well to get a better in-depth view of how the game played out rather than just the goals scored. So if you want to support the channel and think you'd also be interested in looking at the OneFootball app, I'll leave it linked in the description and comments below. So what do we know about Weghorst? Well, he's 30 years old and he stands at 6'6", so he's definitely an aerial threat and has spent the first half of this season on loan at Besiktas from Burnley. Now if we look at his FB Ref report over the last 365 days from the time he was at Burnley, it certainly doesn't look impressive, with his non-penalty XG of just 0.28 per 90 ranking in the 27th percentile, and his non-penalty goals ranking in just the 3rd percentile at 0.10 per 90. Showing us that at Burnley not only was Weghorst starved for chances, but he was also failing to finish the ones that he did get. If you look at the bottom of his FB Ref report, you can see that he does rank very highly for all of his tackles, interceptions and his blocks. Now even though from a statistical point of view at the moment it doesn't look promising, we do have to consider that he was at Burnley under Sean Dyche, and if we look at him statistically at all the other clubs he's been at, he actually looks a lot more promising. So far this season Weghorst has hit 8 goals in 16 appearances in the Turkish Superliga, which as you mathematical geniuses might be able to work out is a goal every other game, a pretty good rate for a centre forward who doesn't base his entire game around his sole goal scoring. Despite scoring just 2 goals in 20 appearances in the second half of last season at Burnley, in the first half of the season he did hit a much more respectable 6 goals in 18 Bundesliga games for Wolfsburg. However, if we go back to the season before and his last full season at Wolfsburg, we can see that he actually managed to hit 20 goals in 34 Bundesliga games. And the fact that in the 1920 season, the season before that, he scored 16 goals in 32 games, I think it's fair to say that the last year or so, or particularly his time at Burnley, isn't at all a fair representation of how good Weghorst actually is. Now in terms of his goal scoring, he's very much a poacher-like box player who thrives in and around the 6-yard box, particularly from crossing situations. Now whilst he is certainly an aerial threat, being very good at getting in front of his man and having the height to make himself a threat from pretty much any cross, a lot of the goals he actually scores do actually come with his feet. And the main reason why I do think he excels from crossing positions is more his movement than just his height. When he sees the opportunity for someone to put in a cross, he often moves round to the back post, as this position allows him to see the whole picture of the box and make a multitude of different runs, whether this is across his man towards the front post, round the back towards the far post looking for a deep cross, or holding a position slightly further back looking to receive a cutback or the ball to drop to his feet. And when the ball is inside of the box, Weghorst's physical strength and long legs definitely gives him a massive advantage, as he's able to physically dominate defenders and utilise his long legs in order to control the ball and get shots off from positions that smaller strikers just wouldn't be able to do. And for such a big player, he's actually a very cool and composed and technically sound finisher. A very good first time finisher, particularly from crossing situations. And so if he does eventually end up signing for Manchester United, he's certainly not a striker that is only there to be a target man, a player outside the box to receive the ball to feet and into his chest. He is also going to offer a goal scoring threat inside of the box as well, which is definitely what United need. For such a tall player, his reaction speed is actually very good and he's able to get shots away quickly, often only needing one touch to get the ball out of his feet and swivel and take the shot, which is why I would regard him as a very good poacher, as it's essential as a poacher to not just be a clinical finisher, which Weghorst is, but also be able to manoeuvre the ball quickly, bypassing the opposition defenders and getting the ball into a shooting position. And so after this, it's no surprise that when we look at Weghorst from his last season at Wolfsburg in 2020-2021, we see him looking statistically like a completely different centre forward. For that season, over the 2,941 minutes that he played, he ranked in the 87th percentile for both his non-penalty goals and his non-penalty XG, overperforming his non-penalty XG by a pretty significant 0.10 per 90, and he also ranked in the 78th percentile for his XG assisted as well, showing that Weghorst was producing a high level of output, not just in terms of the goals he scored, but also through the goals that he created. Ten Hag wants a striker who's got the ability to drop off and link the play, and Weghorst can definitely do this. He provides a more direct option, with United being able to play longer balls into his chest, as due to his height and his physicality, he's going to be better at controlling those balls than say Anthony Martial. Martial is obviously superior when it comes to linking the play with his feet, and Weghorst is obviously a lot slower than Martial, so doesn't have the same ability to make those sharp runs in behind the back line. So Weghorst certainly isn't anywhere near an upgrade on Martial, he merely offers a different option. I think whilst Martial is one of the best strikers in the league in terms of his outside of the box play, I actually think that Weghorst does provide a much greater goal scoring threat inside of the box, having much more concise and clinical movement in these congested areas. And when United are struggling to break down a deep defensive unit, they are going to get in a lot of these crossing positions. And so having a striker like Weghorst, who's not just an aerial threat from these positions, but also has that poacher-like ability to score around the box with his feet as well, is definitely something that United could use off the bench. And so whilst I don't think that Weghorst is good enough to be United's starting striker for a prolonged period of time if Martial was to get injured, I definitely think that he's a fantastic option to bring off the bench. And for me, that's what this signing is. You're getting him on a loan, you're not paying a fee for him. And ideally, I would like United to sign a better, more longer-term striker to compete with Anthony Martial, but I would say I am content with having Weghorst as a makeshift option at the moment. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video, check out some of my others, which will be linked in the description. Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get notifications. You can put your thoughts on Weghorst in the comment section below,